Hey everyone, good evening. It's Dawn here. Nice to see you all. I'm going to catch up with you in the chat after my presentation, as I did in the last case, because that worked out so perfectly. There's a case that's been on my mind for a long time. I've alluded to it here and there, but I haven't had a chance to share it with all of you. But the time is now to share the case of Maya Millete in San Diego. This is a woman who's still missing. So there are a lot of commonalities between her and Crystal Rogers, sadly, and also a little bit of Suzanne Morphew and some other cases too, which I'm sure you'll see as we move forward. So I want to introduce this case to you, kind of the timeline to bring us up to date. And then if you're as interested as I am, and I'm pretty sure you will be, I thought we could start looking at the preliminary hearing. In California, the preliminary hearing can be pretty extensive. And so in her case, in the case of California versus Larry Millete, Maya's husband, it was a 10-day preliminary hearing, so lots and lots of hours to cover before trial, which is slated for January of 2026. So let me give you a little bit of an intro, and I'll get back to you in the chat as soon as I'm done doing that. And I'll try to be brief, but wow, there's a lot of details in this case. So again, we're talking about the heartbreaking case of Maya Millete. And this involves the defendant, Larry Millete, paying for witchcraft, paying for hexes, spells to cause harm on Maya, and all kinds of other really involved things. So there's probably not a case that's more disturbing or heartbreaking for a lot of reasons, which we'll get into. I know we can say that about any case, but in this case, I think it's really it's quite true. So Maya goes by Maya Millete. She was born in the Philippines. She was raised primarily in Honolulu, Hawaii, but she ended up here in San Diego. She has an elder sister named Mary Chris, and her parents are Pablo. I'm sorry, I need my glasses. What am I doing? I'm like, why am I squinting? Oh, much better. Her parents are Pablito and Naomi Tabalanza. They have some beautiful names. These are a very beautiful people you're going to see when we start getting into some of the videos. And but they're a tight-knit family, and they texted and called each other on the daily, all the time. And that's why when Maya suddenly stopped responding to texts and didn't show up, her silence got their attention very quickly. So Larry Millete was Maya's husband, and he controlled the finances in a maybe abusive way. I think a lot of people are referring to this as financial abuse. Of course, this is alleged. So, and he's not being charged with financial abuse, but as we begin to dive into some of the details, you'll see what I'm talking about, and you can maybe weigh in on this. So Maya was stashing cash away in order to pay for a divorce attorney, and so the story gets pretty sad pretty quickly. So let me introduce you to Mary Chris. Mary Chris. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me introduce you to some of these photos before we get to Mary Chris. So in the case of Maya Millete, this is a short timeline. There's a lot of beautiful photographs online you can see. But over here, this is Maya out in the desert in her bib jeans. She liked to spend time outdoors in the desert, do off-roading. She brought her children, and I believe Larry was involved in that too. So they had bikes and Jeeps and that kind of thing. So she really enjoyed that. She was very successful in her career with the Navy as, I believe, a contract negotiator. She did very well. Wouldn't be surprised if she actually was the top earner in that family. I'm not 100% sure on that. Maya and Larry, as you can see, when they were very young here in the lower left, they married when they were only 18 years old. So that's a photo from way back. And then they eventually had 3 children, as you can see here in this photo under the pier here in San Diego on the beach. And this photo, I believe, I'm just judging by the kids' ages. I didn't research this recently, but I would say it was probably taken the year before Maya went missing in 2021. The case became if you lived here, you knew what was going on because there was a widespread search. There were billboards, as you can see in this photograph here. There were campaigns on Facebook, as well as other places to participate in the search and share brochures. This all culminated in the arrest, which was very dramatic. All of us here were seeing it on live news shows here, and we'll get into why that was so extra dramatic. But they did take Larry in, and this is Larry as he appears now in court, or in his hearing in court. So from that, let me introduce you to Mary Chris. Mary Chris and Richard. Let's see if I can Droulet, I believe is how you pronounce that name. It has a lot of extra letters. It sounds a little French or Spanish to me, but it could be a Filipino name. I'm not familiar with the origins of it. I haven't had a chance to look into it. I kind of looked at it and it looked like Millete, which is pronounced with the te at the end. The E is the accentua at the end. And Droulet seemed French to me, and when I looked their name origins up, it did say with a real cursory search online that they were of French origin. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So in any case, this is Maya's sister, Mary Chris, and her brother-in-law, and they have been active and forward-facing since Maya's disappearance on January 7th, 2021. The whole family has been active. Maya's immediate family, but Mary Chris and Richard are generally the faces of the family. So Maya disappeared on January 7th, 2021, so very early in the year of 2021 from Chula Vista, California. This is San Diego County. And this was reportedly amidst marital problems and plans for a divorce from her husband after lots of marital problems for years. Again, her husband was Larry Millete. So Larry became a person of interest, and then ultimately, and I don't think they named him as a person of interest for about 4 or 5 months, and then ultimately arrested him on October 19th, 2021, so 10 months later. He was charged with Maya's murder, even though she's not yet been found. No body discovery yet, and also a pretty serious gun charge. So that's why there's a lot of different elements to this case and why that arrest was kind of scary for the community. And as I said, again, Maya's body has not yet been found. There's a lot of speculation about where she is. So let me show you a little bit of a map just so you get an idea of where we're talking about. So this is Chula Vista, and this is San Diego County. It's near the Mexican border and the Pacific Ocean. And that's where Maya lived with Larry and their 3 young children the time she went missing. So as I mentioned earlier, Maya and Larry met and married. They met working at McDonald's and married when they were just 18 years old in 1999. So they were married about 21 years when she went missing. She gave birth to their first daughter in 2010, so 11 years later, followed by another girl, as you can see in that photograph I showed you. That was a year later in 2011, so they were very close in age, or are very close in age. And then they had a little boy 5 year later. So after a 3-year guardianship battle with lots of hearings, a lot of it was televised here locally, during which Larry's parents, Benito and Judith Millete, they failed to make more, who had custody of the children, they failed to make mortgage payment on Larry's home. And in August, finally, in August 2024, so just last year, barely a year ago, the judge mandated that Maya's 3 children, then last year, ages 14, 13, and 7 or 8 for the boy, that they relocate to Mary Chris's home. So this is a wonderful photo that I just loved of Mary Chris and Maya. So let me take a quick break. I'm going to pop over here to the comments. I might have to. Oh, hi, guys. She was such a cutie. I mean, and her sister, you're going to fall in love with this family as you get to know them through the hearings and the filings and through what I hope to share with you coming forward here. So let me get up to your comments here. Thanks for joining me. So, Lord's Girl says, I know nothing about this case. You're going to want to, and when I say it's an important case, I thought about this while I was getting ready to go online. I say it's important for a lot of reasons. This case was super traumatic for our community, and we live in a large, waiting for me. Okay, so hi, Dawn from Top Cat, just learning about this. Okay. Maya was adorable, very pretty. Her sister, same, Mary Chris. And she was about 39 when she went missing. Yeah. Hi, Queen Olive, Ruth Ann. Ruth Ann is very interested in this case. She messaged or commented earlier, so I'm glad you made it. And if you're watching on replay, hello to all of you as well. So, all right. Hey, everyone's saying hi. Oh, okay. And so I did a little short earlier, and it was a clip from the hearing, the preliminary hearing that I plan to play. Like I said, it's 10 days. So it's a lot of hours. If you figure 5 to 6 hours a day, so that's 50 to 60 hours to go through. And I want to be able to go through it. It's a really interesting case. And a very educational. And like I said, you're going to fall in love with the family, but I have other news clips I can share as well. So, yeah, so her husband was arrested, has been charged, and has gone through in California, they have a preliminary hearing where the judge decides whether the case should or should not go forward. The judge did decide it would go forward. And unfortunately, and I'll get into this with my review, but Larry's gone through several attorneys. He's on his 3rd one now. So we're hoping that January 2026 is for sure the day. The attorneys have said that it is. So here we go. All right, let me get back to the presentation. So as I said, there was a 3-year guardianship battle going back and forth. And now, finally, Mary Chris, Maya's beloved sister, you can just feel the love they had for one another. You're going to just really feel for this family too. The children are with Mary Chris. So this is interesting. Testimony at the final hearing, custody hearing that is, revealed the grandparents hindered the children's therapy. They lost their mother, and the grandparent, again, this is Larry's parents, hindered them having therapy, psychological support, and made maternal family visitations difficult. Does that sound familiar, Adelsons? Which is maddening. It's so maddening to me. Okay, I'll stick to the script. It was found that Larry's parents instructed their oldest daughter, Maya, and Larry's oldest daughter to lock the doors when Richard Droulet, Mary Chris's loving and supportive husband, is around, and also encouraged them to spy on Maya's family when they were giving custody to them. I mean, it's just so despite, and the children, so it says here from the reports, and I summarized it here, despite the children's preference to stay with Larry's parents, because they had been with them for about 3 years at this point, more than 3 years. The guardian ad litem recommended Mary Chris and her husband take custody. The judge, and that's unusual because the children do get a say in custody hearings, and they wanted to stay with Larry's parents. That's what they were used to. They were being influenced, of course. And even if a family were trying not to influence, it would be very hard not to in a case where one of the parents is in jail waiting trial for murder of the other. It would be very hard for even in the best of circumstances. But it doesn't appear that they were even trying. So the ad litem recommended no for them to go to Maya's sister. And the judge criticized openly, and I do believe there's a clip of this from the hearing, criticized the grandparents for emotional failure and questioned their unstable living situation. So again, I think it came to a head. Unfortunately, it should have been before this, in my opinion, and for other reasons, in my opinion, but it was because they moved into Larry's and Maya's home and they couldn't afford to make payments while he was in jail. And so they were going to get foreclosed on. And so where were the children going to go? So then the court finally stepped in. So the courts are very, and I would like Judy to weigh in this, but the courts seem to me, from what I can tell, the little that I can tell, that they're reluctant to move children around once they've been settled. And Larry, because he was the surviving parent, he wanted the kids to go with his parents, and that's how that worked out. That also sounds a little like the Crystal Rogers case, because Crystal Rogers' child is with her murderer's mom, just like this happened, and it's just maddening to me. And I can say her murderer because Brooks Hauk has been convicted. Back to Larry and Maya. So Larry Millete's trial for murder has been delayed multiple times. It's now, as I mentioned earlier, set for January 2026. So we have like a half a year to get through this preliminary hearing and get familiar with this case. This case has received national media attention. So you might have heard about it, but it's been kind of fading because of all these delays. And the searches for Maya continue. If you're here locally, you will hear about it. You will see clips on the news, videos, and that type of thing. And I showed you that map. You can see it's just vast desert and mountains and ocean. There's a lot of space on either side, west or east, of where they were living. And then, of course, Mexico to the south. So it's like a needle in the haystack. So today's Maya's 3 children are now approximately age 15, age 14, and between 8 and 9. And I do personally, and I know you all do sincerely, hope they're doing well and have adapted to their new and hopefully perhaps permanent home, loving home with Mary, Chris, and Richard, and more involved in Maya's immediate family now that they're only visiting with Larry's parents, according to the court rules. So again, I mentioned earlier, I'd like to hear what you have to say about it. It's just super sickening to me that when an alleged murderer, especially after they've been arrested, his family, his or her family, we know who we're talking about here, is given custody and control of the children of the murdered parent. It's galling. So there are several cases going on civilly in family court, and then, of course, the criminal case. And so that's why I call this the heartbreaking case of Maya Millete. So I'm going to get into the timeline in one sec here. Let me pop over the chat. Yeah, it's a super, super, super big area. Hey, Carla. So Carla attended a search when she first went missing. So Carla's here from the hood too. And I will tell you all, and I meant to mention this earlier, but whenever there is a search party, it really pulls at my heartstrings, because that's what happened when I was a child and I was the victim of crime, and the person who I got away from actually committed a crime against another little girl, and it culminated into a huge search party. And so that's a trigger for me, not necessarily a trigger for me to feel bad, but a trigger for me to want to do something. And so I'm so glad you went, Carla. I forgot about that. I wanted to. I was just crawling out of my skin watching every second of this. It's just triggering, and it's just, as we know, the first 48 hours, the first couple of days are so important. And so it's always good to see your community out there looking, and people that like Carla, you're not familiar with this family, just strangers showing up to help Mary, Chris, and Maya's immediate family and friends. That's just such a beautiful thing. And that's one of the reasons I talked about this case as being important, because just like this example with Carla here, we can see how this was obviously a direct violation against Maya, of course, the victim, all of her loved ones, the survivors, we call them, they're also considered to be victims, but the entire community. I know back when I was a little kid, my community is still talks about what happened today. It's an assault against the entire community, and that's why it's called the people versus Larry Millete, or the state versus Darrell Brooks. Darrell Brooks, I'm talking to you. Yes, that's why the state is the one who presses the charges, because you're committing a crime against the entire community. So yeah, I have feelings, can you tell? So Queen Olive, Ruth Ann, do you think he really doesn't remember or know how to get to her body? Do I think Larry doesn't remember? Chat, I would love for you to weigh in on that. In my opinion, and with the kind of therapy that I've gotten over the years because of being a victim of a serious crime, perpetrators, especially murderers, they remember everything. It's important to them. It's the most important thing that they do, and sometimes it's multiple victims, but in this case, I would put money on that the defendant in this case knows every single millimeter of the area that he went to. I don't think he forgot anything, personally. That's my opinion. What do you think, Ruth Ann? What do you guys think to Ruth Ann's question? Do you think Larry knows where she is? I think the answer is, oh, yes. And Carla says he knows exactly where, and he is not saying it because it's part of his psychopathy. Yeah. Yeah. The only power he has left, because he's not going to have any more power. Very controlling person. Super sad. Super sad. All right, so let's get into the timeline. As you can see, I put together a document because I have to do these things because my brain doesn't remember. I have to write things down, then I'll have a better chance of remembering things, and even then I might not. So this is what I'm going to briefly go through tonight, and it's the timeline from the time that Maya went missing up until the time when the judge said, yeah, Larry, no, you're not insane. You can stand trial, and then took it to a preliminary hearing, which was after that. And so I'll go over the timeline in 3 sections, from January to April 21, from May to November 21, and then out until September of 22. So how's that sound? All right. Okay, and Olive says yes, she thinks he knows. It looks like everybody thinks so. Lord's girl, top cat. Okay, yeah, good. Confirmation. It's more likely we're all right, not all wrong. Okay, so basically, really in a nutshell, I'm going to try to rip through this pretty quickly so my throat lasts. So January 7th, 2021, a very important date to remember. This is when Maya first went missing, and and she was again a mother of three. She lived in Chula Vista, which is San Diego County. Um, she goes by May. So May, or Maya Millete, goes missing, was later found out through security camera footage that loud bangs sounding like gunshots rang through the neighborhood late that night. So that was picked up on security footage by neighbors. It was also later reported that Maya made an appointment with a divorce attorney on January 7th that day. And Larry also made statements that Maya and he had an argument that night. Well, he said they fought. No. On January 8th, the next day, Larry Millete leaves his home for over 11 hours. Carla knows a lot about this. So Carla, please supplement what I'm saying in the comments, because I'm trying to do this in like abbreviated form. So please, Carla knows this case very well. So the day after May's disappearance, Larry is gone from the family home for 11 hours and 21 minutes. Who does that? I'm waiting for my wife to come home. She's missing, so I'm just going to take off for the day. He told family members that he went to the beach with his 4-year-old. He says, and investigators later confirmed what he said, that he was in the Lexus SUV that the family owns, and the license plate spells Maylani, Maylani, which is significant because the community wasn't informed of that until many months later. That was probably something that might have stuck out in someone's head had they had that brought to their attention, like on the news right then. Well, we'll maybe find out why they didn't release that information, but that seems to me like a faux pas. Sorry, but law enforcement isn't perfect. Larry's phone was left behind while he was gone, so he couldn't be tracked. On January 11th, the police started the search. So the day after Maya was reported missing, police entered her home and began their investigation. On January 13th, and I believe, Carla, this is the one that you participated in, search parties began looking for Maya. This was community driven. And this was the first of many search parties to go out and look for Maya or for evidence, either or, whatever they could find. And there's, as I said, they're still searching to this day. On January 15th, so this is 8 days later, the family held a vigil for Maya, and Mr. Larry speaks to the media. So loved ones hold the first of many vigils for Maya. At the time, police said Larry is cooperating with the investigation. Larry said he got concerned when she missed their daughter's 11th birthday. So there was a party that was being arranged, and of course she missed it. They also have a 9-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son, as I mentioned. So that's what, and this is the quote. That's what's concerning and alarming, that she would be gone this long, said Larry Millete. And several reporters, including News 8 Abby Alford, spoke to Larry on the phone after the vigil. So he said he spoke to his wife of 21 years, Maya, in the present, and doesn't know why she would go missing. And then he also said, quote, "I don't want to speculate," and there's a lot of speculation. So that's what he had to say. He spoke to some other reporters too, some interesting little quotes there, but He was covering himself. A day later, my search goes online. They moved pretty well, I thought, with the community searches, and a GoFundMe page was set up to try to pool resources to help everything, including the family having to travel for the searches and for whatnot. On January 23rd, the Millete home, Maya's home, was searched for the first time. The police already went in, but they actually got a formal search warrant looking for specific things 2 weeks later after she was went missing. The interesting thing is that the police do not really reveal what was seized during the search. Some of that does come out in the preliminary hearings and later. It was later reported that officers did take that SUV, that Lexus, the one that Larry took for 11 hours and 21 minutes on the day after she went missing, Maya went missing. So they did seize that car. Investigators also seized guns and other evidence from the home located at, and then they give the address. So, and then April 2021, the search grows into a national investigation. So this is when the Chula Vista police started working with the FBI, the San Diego County District Attorney's Office, as well as the Naval Criminal Investigative Service, which is interesting. We have a lot of military resources out here. According to an investigation update that they posted on the Chula Vista Police Department page on Facebook. So also, April of 21, the case made national news when Mary, Chris, and Richard appeared on the Dr. Phil show. There was like 48 Hours and other shows that they appeared on. So, all right. So that brings us to the first 4 months since she went missing. Let me pop over the comments, see if there's anything I'm missing. That will come. That will come. All right. They do use the cadaver dog, but that's not released until the preliminary hearing, which I'd like to. I'm assuming like we can vote right here. Do you want to see the preliminary hearing? I'm probably do like 1 hour a week, or I'm not sure how I'll do it, but to get through it, like I said, it's like for 50 hours of content. So, and that's without commercials and all that. So maybe 40. Okay, so let me see what I missed here. All right. Yeah, and Barry. Oh, okay. All right. So Maya was pretty feisty and fit. So I don't even want to think about what happened. And why did he take the 4-year-old? I guess he had to take the 4-year-old. Where were the other kids? Did they stay home, Carla? Do you know? I can't remember what the details were. Okay, so Carla notes that it was the first time in all their years of living there that he had backed the car straight into the garage, so their outside camera didn't catch what he loaded. Yes, and we're going to see video of that in the preliminary hearing. Yes. Wow. This really tugs at my heart in a big way. They do bring cadavers in later. Oh yes, and then Chris Watts. Okay, so yeah, it's a big chunk of time. So that's why I'm starting in July. The trial's not till January. But even if the trial wasn't in January, I think I've been wanting to cover this and talk about this trial. It just, like I said, it really means a lot. Okay, and so the older two went to the parents' home, the grandparents, the enablers, the helpers. All right, so let's get over to May through November. All right, get back to my notes. So on May 7th, the Millete home was searched again. and again with the search warrant. So it's technically the third time it was searched, but because the police did enter once without Larry allowed them in. So the police search a vehicle on the property, and a police dog was seen entering the home. So I believe that was a cadaver dog. And again, they're not giving the community a lot of information because they're trying to maintain the integrity of the investigation. So they didn't give out a lot of details, but it will come very clear in the prelim hearing that we will look at together. June 15th, Larry Millete claims that the Chula Vista Police Department held me for 6 hours. Larry Millete fires back against his in-laws, as well as the police department and the authorities who filed a temporary gun violence restraining order. This is going to be a big thing against him in an explosive 80-page response in advance of the GVRO hearing. Larry claims he was pulled over on the freeway May 7th and taken into custody for hours while the CVPD served a search warrant on his home. So he claimed that the guns that they took were legal and whatever. So it's, and I am not going to show you the photos of the stash of guns that were in his home, but it was pretty scary to see all of those weapons. And so there's a lot of speculation that he was going to go out with a bang. What's really sad, and Carla will remember this, that there was a photo, I believe, that Larry had taken. They must have picked it up off of his cell phone or something like that, of his little 4-year-old boy standing on the kitchen table with amongst all these weapons. He's like standing there in like a diaper or something like that. Of course, he's redacted out of the photo, so we don't really see him, but man, if that, and then they're honoring his wishes to where the children should have a safe home. It blows me away. It just blows me away. July 1st, third search warrant on Maya's home. Detectives served the search warrant in the Millete residence to obtain additional evidence and clues to her current whereabouts. So it was specifically written with that in mind, the search warrant. Because as you know, search warrants have to be specific. They can't just say, hey, just want to look around. So they had an idea that if they went back, they might be able to find more information about her whereabouts, which ended up leading to different searches in different areas of altogether, like pretty far out. So on July 22, 2021, Larry is referred to as a person of interest. He's not yet arrested. All these guns, all this stuff, he's not yet arrested in Maya's disappearance. And then Judge Catherine Bacall agrees that the public should have access to the civil court documents related to this gun violence restraining order. And it was actually CBS News 8 in San Diego that took legal action to request that these photographs and the information about that restraining order were unsealed. And they are the ones who got that photograph that I was referring to with the little boy. But again, it's redacted, but frightening, chilling, really. So as I mentioned, Larry's a person of interest now, so he's been named. And the judge also released the photos of his entire gun collection, which was impressive, shall we say. And then, of course, I think it was 16 different guns. They're still looking for one gun that seems to be missing. Carla, is that a 9mm? I believe they're looking in lots of places, including Larry's family's homes. So we'll get to that. So on July 26th, these unsealed court records refer to Maya's disappearance as a criminal investigation, of course. But of course, Larry was saying all this time, oh, she just took off. She always did that, and she was tired of me and the kids, and she just left. So now we know better, officially in the courts. It took a little while. It was July. And then also those court records made public the whole gun violence restraining order that was filed against Millete, which he took great offense to. Great offense, to tell you the truth. I mean, it's kind of wild, that 80-page response. But still, at this point, the documents do not describe Larry as a suspect. And they don't indicate whether they believe Maya is killed or not, murdered at this time. So this was July. And then during a battle in August 26th, there was another legal battle for the children. So this is in family court now. So we've got civil, family, and criminal court hearings, like all happening in tandem, and it's kind of hard to keep up with. But Maya's parents, Pablito and Naomi Tabalanza, continued their battle in Chula Vista Family Court, seeking court-ordered visitation. They just wanted visitation. This sounds like Crystal Rogers' case again, with Maya's children. And during that proceeding, in those documents, in those court documents, one of the filings somehow offered some clues as to new possible search locations for Maya. So this gets really interesting, how these things are all kind of working together in a way. And so this is this says this filing listed 9 photographs filed with the court during trips the family took in 2020, including the location of those trips, including Glamis, Lake Havasu, which is Arizona, and Lake Elsinore. So this really broadens the search way out, and this is why it was helpful for them to have the GoFundMe for the family so they could travel to these locations. And then on September 8th, Larry comes up with this restatement that Maya left voluntarily. He said in court papers he believed his wife is still alive, and she voluntarily left the family. Although there's no... Okay, I won't say anything. I'm just going to stick to the script here. In a declaration filed September 8th in Chula Vista Family Court, Larry claims his wife left her children of her own accord. And he's quoted, "I consider her still alive because she had voluntarily left our house at least twice in 2020 without saying goodbye to me or our 3 children. We have been praying for her safety and well-being." On September 15th, the gun violence restraining order is extended. It was first temporary, and now it's been extended to 3 months. That's how those things work. And in civil court, Larry is still fighting to get his guns back. He wants those 16 guns. But his attorney agrees to continue the hearing until December 1st. And lo and behold, October 19th, 2021, Larry Millete is arrested. He was arrested for the murder of Maya. At a briefing, Chula Vista Police Chief and San Diego County DA gave more details of the investigation. We can look at that. The audio is horrible. It was done outdoors, as a lot of things are out here. But there were more investigation, there was more information released in October. It was very emotional. And there again, Mary Chris was there at the press conference, also gave a statement. They were continuing to ask for more public help and information regarding the vehicle they believed was used, the black Lexus with the license plate Melani. So it wasn't until October that the police were like, "Oh, by the way, did anyone see a black Lexus in certain areas, within a certain radius of Chula Vista, with that very noticeable personalized license plate?" But, in October, probably a lot of people aren't going to remember. Excuse me. I am losing my voice already. So, and she also, the chief also elaborated that there's two charges. One is for murder of Maya on January 7th, and one is for illegal possession of an assault weapon. So those are the 16 guns that he's still crying about. Saying they're legal, they're saying, I think, and so both of those charges are still sticking. Nothing has been dropped regarding the guns. So again, although there was happiness and cheering at the press conference, the chief said, hey, this isn't a win. We're still looking for Maya. So 2 days later, Larry pleads not guilty, of course, entered a not guilty, and on both the first degree murder charge as well as the weapons possession charge. And in that, there were court documents that were finally released to the public through court, of course, FOIA requests and whatnot, that revealed more details about the case being built against Larry. And then late in October, about a week later, judge rules Larry violated the protective order. He violated that restraining order. And he violated in reference to his 3 children. So he had to come back into court because he was being accused for violating that order, that restraining order. Right after the judge, during the arraignment, technically it's not an arraignment in California, but whatever, the judge said, do not have any contact with your kids. He just starts calling his kids from jail. So he wasn't listening. So following that order, the prosecutors released that he made 129, this is only 6 days later, 129 phone calls from jail, including 9 hours worth of calls to his kids after the judge said no contact. And they say that the calls were made from jail at all hours of the day, including during school hours as well as late at night. One was made at 1:48 a.m. So it's going a little crazy there. So late October through November, searches continue for Maya. Following his arrest, search teams and Maya Millete's family continue to look for her remains. At this time, they're looking for her remains. And several searches take place in the deserts way east of San Diego, including Glamis, which is an area where people go to do off-roading, and I don't know, I'm not into that kind of thing, but I think there's like dunes out there and that type of thing. So, and then we're going to get to November. Just that the first item in November 4th was that Larry was denied bail, of course. So the judge said, no, he's a danger to the community, and the community was relieved to hear that. So even though it sort of was a formality, you never know, because folks have gotten off or gotten bail and gotten to stay home. He was definitely deemed not safe. So he still remains in custody as he awaits trial for the alleged killing of Maya. So let me pop back over to the chat. How are you guys doing? Okay. Yes. Okay. So Lord's Girl says, yes, please show. That's regarding the preliminary hearing. Yes. Carla, he left the kids at home. Okay, sorry, I went back too far. Yeah, I refer to them as enablers. I should. It seems like. Okay, Lord's Girl, welcome back tomorrow, wherever you left off. No problem. Carla says, I'm glad it was on TV. Shame on him and those who supported him. That's right. Yeah. And Carla also says he wasn't supposed to call the children. I mean, wow. What are they thinking? The judge specifically told him not to do that. All right, so let's get to the last section here. I think I'm going to hit 1 hour on the dot. Amazing. Okay, so the last section of our timeline that's leading up to the preliminary hearing, which will happen in 2023, is what goes on between November 2021 to September 2022. Just a few things here. So Larry's sitting there in jail, and Mary Chris starts petitioning for guardianship of Maya's 3 children. So this was after he was arrested, and he's not getting out on bail, and things were real. This was good timing on their part. So she filed a petition in San Diego probate court seeking temporary guardianship and eventual permanent custody of Maya's 3 children. It, of course, came 2 weeks after Larry was arrested and charged. And then on November 10th, the judge says Milete's children will remain with Larry's parents. So that was a real gut punch, but not surprising if we followed enough of these trials to know that that's kind of how family court rolls. So regarding temporary custody of the Millete children, a probate judge orders they will remain in the custody of Larry Milete's parents. Judge also grants Mary Chris and her side of the family regular visits with the 3 children. Okay, so they were having trouble even getting visitation, and Maya's mother and father went to court just trying to get the visitations enforced, as you know. So even though they had visitation rights, they were still being denied visitation by Larry's parents. And Larry probably before he was arrested. The court also appoints, this is key, a guardian ad litem. And so this was an attorney, Kelly James, who represented the children in custody matters. And that was a good move because that, as I mentioned earlier, that was led to a very important pivotal decision later on after a few years, but it did. So the judge ordered that the guardian ad litem be provided a copy of the forensic interview of the 3 children, which it is revealed already has been conducted by Rady Children's Hospital. And we know that's a big hospital, children's hospital in this area. On December 7th of 2021, again, Larry, and we alluded to this earlier, Larry nominates his parents for guardianship of the children. This is what I don't understand. Okay, I guess I do understand he's not convicted yet, but this is galling. So he filed paperwork from jail nominating his parents, Benito and Judith, to be guardians of the kids. Maya's sister, Mary Chris, previously filed, of course, her own petition we just discussed. The judge had already ordered visitation once a week with Maya's side of the family. But the new filings included sworn declarations by both Larry's parents explaining why the paternal grandparents believed they would be good guardians and why the aunt's family would not. That's rude. I mean, they lost a loved one, and now they're being told they're not fit to be guardians by the parents of the person who is probably responsible for the loss of their loved ones. That hurts. That's so hurtful. December 16th, 2021, the defense pushes back against the protective order. This is back to the gun violence restraining order. So what was supposed to be a routine hearing to set dates for the preliminary hearing that I keep talking about, in the murder case, it ended up getting delayed for more than an hour. They went behind closed doors. The Office of San Diego County District Attorney had filed the proposed protective order to make sure, oh, I'm sorry, this isn't the gun violence. Excuse me. Different protective order. To make sure evidence turned over to the defense did not get released to the public or posted on the internet before trial. So they are keeping this pretty close to the vest compared to some other states. That seems to be a California thing. I don't know. But at the time, Larry's defense attorney, Bonita Martinez, who you will meet in the preliminary hearings, you're going to love her. She refused to sign off on the order, according to the motion filed this week by the DA. And so there was an hour delay, and then Martinez came back with the tail between her legs and signed the order. She's interesting, that Bonita. You'll see. I can't wait for you to meet Bonita. She's not in the case anymore, which is kind of a shame in some ways, but you'll see. I can't wait. January 8th, 2022, families, friends hold a vigil for Maya, marking 1 year since her disappearance, which is very sobering. So they gathered at a community park, and this was, of course, televised here locally. There was music, stories of times with Maya by her family and friends, and prayers. They had a lot of praying that there would be some answers. And this was very sad, again, affecting the whole community. So way out in June now of 2022, Larry's attorney, Bonita, declares doubt of competency. Doubt of competency. Criminal proceedings suspended. So this is interesting. So she declared a doubt regarding her client's competency to stand trial. Larry's competence, of course, this is mental competency, which led to the judge. This was Judge Dwayne Mooring, who I adore, who I don't believe is on the case anymore either. Boo-hoo. I loved him. You'll see him also. You'll meet him in the preliminary hearing as we do our reactions to that. He's just lovely. So they had to suspend. This is the first of many times that the criminal hearings and anything moving forward regarding Maya's murder case was put on hold. So, but then Larry was subsequently evaluated by a doctor to determine whether he's fit to stand trial, and he was deemed mentally incompetent to stand trial if they are unable to understand the nature of the criminal proceedings or assist their attorney with their defense. So, every state handles this a little bit differently, but that's how this is defined here in California. And then in August, so a few months later, another judge ruled that that the children's court appointed guardian, meaning Larry's parents, can decide if they meet with the DA or not. So the guardian ad litem we talked about earlier told the judge that the DA's office wanted to speak with the children regarding the case against their father. After all, they were in the house when she went missing. So the judge gave the ad litem the authority to make the decision. And the judge, and so then the judge, I'm getting these names mixed up. The judge also issued a tentative ruling granting attorneys for Mary Chris permission to depose Larry in regards to the custody battle. So this is really getting deep into it. Very juicy stuff in family law. And I would love for Judy to weigh in on this. I know she's interested in this case. But that deposition hinged on whether or not Larry was found mentally competent. So again, these are all running together, but all these different civil, criminal, and family court cases are all kind of crashing like bumper cars into one another. So it's very delicate. And later that month, August 29th, Larry's mental competency hearing was delayed. And he did appear but the hearing lasted less than 5 minutes. So basically, the forensic doctors asked for some more time. And I believe this is when we pivot. This is a different judge, sorry. Judge Cindy Davis. So there's a lot of different judges entering in here. So I'm not sure what judge we're going to get in the end, but I believe we're not going to get the judge that heard the preliminary hearing, which is sad. But anyway, this judge, she said that the doctors noted that there's not a lot of documentation involved in this case. Therefore, they had to continue. September 26, 2022, getting to the end of this timeline here. Trial for Millete moves forward after mental competency findings. So he was found to be competent. So in June, Bonita Martinez, attorney for Larry, declared a doubt as to his competency, but in the end, she had to stipulate that, the report authored by a psychiatrist who examined Larry deemed that he was mentally competent. So, and of course, we have a different definition for that, but this is regards to whether or not he can understand his case and advise his lawyer going forward. So, and then the last little piece is that there's some more filings that reveal some more details in the case, even though a lot of the details are being held back from the public. A lot of things are coming out through all these different proceedings and different levels. So 2 lawsuits filed by Larry were transferred to federal court. So Larry's suing now. So Larry's saying that this is so wild. So Larry, both lawsuits allege civil rights violations when Chula Vista police served search warrants related to a criminal case. Ricky Lincoln and Kathy Fredericks, Millete's uncle and aunt, we're going to hear about them, filed a lawsuit in state court in May alleging Chula Vista police illegally searched basically their home in Canto back in April. So that lawsuit, as well as a similar lawsuit filed in May by Larry's parents, were transferred this week to federal court because they allege civil rights violations. So that has to be handled in federal court. Buried in the civil court filings is new information related to Millete's criminal case. And so Judge Mooring, the one who I really like, and I hope we get to see a lot of in the future, in addition, we'll see him in the preliminary hearing. He ruled that Millete can resume communication from jail with his children. In addition, so this all happened in October of 2022. And so the judge said Millete will only be allowed to write letters to his kids. So you can't call him 129 times in a week in the middle of the night. And that was recommended, of course. And the letters have to be approved in advance. So he's starting to get his hands tied quite a bit with his children, as to contact with his children. So there it is. So that brings us to the end of September. And then we have a bit of a gap. And what's next is what we've been talking to is this infamous 10-day preliminary hearing. So I'm just going to give you a taste of what we're going to see, and then we're going to sign off. We're going to be just under an hour, or just over an hour. So this preliminary hearing in the People versus Larry Millete in the case of Maya Millete, this took place from January 11th to January 25th in 2023. It was very hard to cobble together all of the content, all the videos of this. It was very hard, but I did it back then, and I'm going to do it again for you guys. But this time with some ability for us to react and kind of analyze what we're seeing and prepare for this trial. So basically, we're going to hear in this hearing is that there were prosecution witnesses, 26 or 25. Yeah, 25 prosecution witnesses, nothing from the defense, no defense case. Okay, it's not a trial, it's a hearing, but nevertheless, usually the defense might have something to say. Maya's sister and brother both testify. You're going to love them. I'm telling you, they're just so sweet. They testified about abuse, financial abuse, surveillance of Maya by Larry, and Larry's suspicions, his constant suspicions for years. And then Maya's father, oh, love that man. And oh my gosh, this just makes me almost want to cry just saying, because I can see him. And but anyway, he testifies. He noted strange behavior from Larry. He noted Larry having a key to a room that Maya should have had exclusive access to, and way more than that. Way more. We're going to get into the family going to Maya's home to try and see, hey, Larry, where is she? What's going on? She's not answering our texts. And he's got her locked in a room where she's supposed to be napping, but the door's locked. It's just very convoluted. You're going to hear about all of that. Her sister-in-law, her brother, and her coworker also will testify. I believe that was like the fourth day. And even the coworker, Maya's coworker, confirmed Larry was trying to isolate Maya from colleagues. So he's trying to isolate her from lots of things and control her. And then Maya's brother and a friend will testify, and that the friend described Maya as locking herself in a room due to this fear of tracking, Larry tracking her and surveilling her. And then some explosive new evidence is revealed about halfway through. New video and search history will be revealed, and this is from Larry's devices, surveillance, and subliminal tactics are going to be discussed, as well as the spellcasters and all kinds of crazy, mind-blowing things that normal people just don't get involved with. Subliminal message tactics. So he was trying to use subliminal messaging to get through to Maya, but not always in a positive way. And then there's going to be police testimony on things that happened during the searches. And Larry's texts are revealed also in this hearing. So again, a lot of the evidence that we're going to see in trial, not all of it, certainly not all of it. And some of it that was at the hearing, we probably won't even see much of. But that's how those work. And then another new piece was that Maya had secretly recorded an argument that she had with Larry. That will certainly come into trial, I would think. It did come out in the hearing. So that's very interesting. And so he was confronting her about her having affairs, that he suspected of her. And then from all of that, after 10 days, probably one of my favorite judges I just mentioned that I just gush over, he did rule that Larry would stand trial. And that's how, again, it works in California. So they have to have this preliminary hearing where some of the evidence is laid out. The defense has a chance at this point to shut it down. They didn't really do anything. The cross-examination that they did, you're going to love it. It's probably my favorite thing about this whole hearing. It's just wild, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say about why she asked certain questions during the hearing. And the judge has some very colorful things to say with her too. So yeah, so again, there have been multiple trial delays. This lawyer that we're going to see in the preliminary hearing ultimately will not go forward and be his representative in the trial. So we'll say farewell to Bonita after this hearing that we go through, but we're going to want to meet her and see her and experience this. I think he's gone through I think he went through her, couldn't pay her, She was actually the family attorney, probably not even a defense attorney, so in a little bit over her head, in my opinion. And then he had another attorney evidently complain that they weren't getting paid. Are we thinking Sarah Boone-ish vibes here, maybe? And then now he has a final attorney, which is court appointed. So, and they are solid. They're saying, yeah, we're going forward in January. So that, is what this is going to be about. So we're going to next review, react, and discuss that hearing. Let me pop on over here and see if anyone is still here. My throat. Okay. Larry does not have a lot of money. Whatever they had, they have now spent on Bonita. And his parents didn't even have enough money to make their house payment. So go figure. Let me see what else here. Oh, yes, you're right, Carla. Carla is mentioning here that it was Larry's parents who facilitated him making those phone calls from jail, even though they full well knew he was not supposed to be contacting the children. Excuse me, I had to get a little drink there. Top Cat, it's so true. It seems to me like the children almost always end up with the worst choice of custodians. It just, I don't know. It's just what it seems like. So Carla says, yes, Larry's officially out of money, which is why Bonita is no longer, and the second attorneys too, no longer with him because they weren't getting paid. Mm-hmm. And then Carla says, if memory serves me correctly, the house, and this is Larry and Maya's house, was sold in a foreclosure transaction. That is true because he was in jail, so he couldn't pay for it, but his parents were living there with the children and not making payments, which did contribute to ultimately Mary Chris getting custody finally. Like if you're going to live in a house, you need to make the payments, right? Or something, or pay him rent so he makes it. I don't know. Do the police know where her phone is? I believe her phone was left at home. Right, Carla? All right. So if that sounds interesting to you, I think at one point this case had national, eyes on nationally, and I think it will again once it gets rolling again. But as you know, that social media does play a role in trials, sometimes not a great role, but bringing attention to this assault on this woman and her family and this community is something that I don't know. I think it touches me in a really deep way, and so I'd like to bring it to you. So hopefully this kind of gives you an idea of what this case is about. Carla, did I miss anything? Did I miss anything before I say goodnight? Hopefully I caught everything. Is there anything else in this overview that you'd like me to mention, Carla, before I log off? Thank you all for being here in the chat, and for those, again, replaying, hi to you, and comment and ask questions so that I'm prepared for the next video. All right, so I think I got the basics. Carla says she thinks I got the basics too. So with that, everyone, thanks for being here. Put your bell on so you get the notification when I go live again. I don't have a time in mind right now to come back, but probably in a week, or maybe a week in a day or something like that. But I would like to get into a regular schedule so we can power through this preliminary hearing. And it's trust me, it's not going to be boring. One of the things that I've learned watching trials over the last few years, really since COVID started, is getting to know the people that are involved. Some of them I don't want to know, but some of them, in this case, you're going to find there are a lot of people that you really, at least for me, I find very endearing, and people that I would more than be happy to have a coffee with or something like that. So in that case, I'm going to wrap her up. Thank you guys so much for joining me again. Click the bell so you know when I'm live next, or if I drop a video. Sometimes I'll just drop a video and it won't be live, but I do enjoy having it live so I can interact with the chat. So thank you guys. Have a good week coming up ahead. It's Sunday night. Sorry about that, but it's Sunday night, so I can't say have a nice weekend anymore. Bye for now. Thanks for joining me. See you soon.